Inside the sterile VIP ward of St. Francis Medical Center, 8-year-old Tommy Marcelli was fading away. For 3 relentless weeks, seizures racked his tiny body, and the world's most celebrated specialists could only watch as his strength slipped further. Doctors had been flown in from Johns Hopkins, Harvard, even from across Europe, yet none could explain the boy's decline. His father, Vincent Marcelli, a man whispered about in fearful tones as the city's most powerful crime boss, stood helpless beside the hospital bed. His empire stretched over ports, unions, and politicians. But here, money and power meant nothing. His only son was dying. Down the corridor, a young girl clutching a stack of medical textbooks walked quietly past the crowded team of doctors. Kesha Carter, 15 years old, the daughter of a janitor who had worked the hospital halls for decades, had been silently watching Tommy's case for 2 weeks. What no one knew was that she had been studying medicine since childhood, devouring journals and research papers long before most kids even cared about high school. Dr. Peterson, a Harvard-educated physician with decades of experience, noticed her standing nearby. "What now?" he scoffed. "The janitor's daughter thinks she's a doctor?" His laugh echoed down the corridor. Kesha did not flinch. She had been ridiculed before, for her age, for her race, for daring to step into spaces society told her she didn't belong. But she also had a gift, a photographic memory, and the determination of someone who refused to be dismissed. She had tracked every test, every misstep, every overlooked symptom, and she saw what the others could not. "Tommy doesn't have a mysterious disease," she whispered. "He's been poisoned, thallium." At first, no one listened. But when Tommy convulsed again, and his father stumbled into the hallway with red-rimmed eyes, Kesha's words cut through the noise. "Check for heavy metal poisoning. You've spent $500,000 on useless tests, yet you didn't bother with the simplest one." The doctors froze. Vincent turned toward her, studying the girl who had dared to say what no one else would. "Run the test," he ordered. His voice carried the weight of a man used to obedience. 47 minutes later, the results were in. Acute thallium poisoning. Levels 15 times higher than normal. The elite medical team, men and women who had built careers on their prestige, stared in stunned silence. A teenager, the daughter of a janitor, had solved the case they could not. Vincent Marcelli fell to his knees before her. "You saved my boy," he said hoarsely. "Tell me how I can repay you." Kesha's eyes narrowed. "If Tommy was poisoned, someone in this hospital is responsible. Let me finish what I started." And with that, a girl everyone had underestimated had not only saved a life, she had set her sights on uncovering something much darker. The doctors wanted her gone. Dr. Peterson barked at security to remove her, furious at being humiliated. But Kesha stood her ground. "You'll let a child die because of your pride," she said, her voice calm but cutting. The staff shifted uncomfortably. The truth hung heavy in the air. Vincent silenced them with one glare. From that moment, he trusted Kesha more than all his hired experts. For 2 weeks, she and her father, James Carter, quietly investigated. James knew every corner of the hospital after 20 years of sweeping its floors, every doctor's schedule, every nurse's habits. At Kesha's request, he tracked movements, logged routines, and reported back to her with military precision. Suspicion quickly fell on Dr. Miranda Walsh, the pediatrician on night duty during every one of Tommy's sudden crashes. Unlike the other physicians, Walsh wasn't embarrassed or defensive when Kesha exposed the poisoning. She was angry. Angry not at the situation, but at Kesha herself. Kesha had seen that kind of fury before. It was the rage of someone whose secret was on the verge of being revealed. She began playing the role of an eager, naive teenager, asking Walsh questions about past rare cases. She casually mentioned other wealthy children who had died mysteriously. Senator Morrison's daughter, Judge Thompson's son. The same symptoms, the same unexplained endings. Walsh's mask slipped for the briefest second, her smile faltering. She told Kesha coldly to stop asking questions. That night, Kesha and her father planted small recording devices in supply closets and medication prep rooms. Within days, she captured the conversation that confirmed her worst suspicions. Walsh wasn't just neglectful, she was deliberate. Over the phone, Kesha recorded her saying the words that would burn into history. "The families pay us to make it look like illness. One less heir means fewer problems. No one questions me. They never do." The operation was clear. Wealthy parents hiring a doctor to discreetly murder their own children, ensuring inheritances shifted as they wished. Walsh had been paid millions. And now, realizing Kesha was too smart for her own good, she planned to arrange an accident for the girl. But Kesha was ready. The next morning, Vincent called a meeting with the hospital's administrators, lawyers, and Dr. Peterson. Kesha walked in carrying her laptop. Walsh entered, expecting to see the troublesome teenager being scolded. Instead, she walked straight into her downfall. Kesha pressed play. Walsh's own voice filled the room, discussing contract killings, poisoned children, and rich families who wanted their heirs gone. Walsh turned pale. "That recording is illegal." "Not when it proves conspiracy to murder," the lawyer cut in sharply. Vincent stood, his face carved from stone. "You tried to kill my son for money, and you failed." Security cuffed Walsh before she could speak again. Years of respectability, her titles, her career, it all crumbled in that moment. A 15-year-old girl had destroyed her entire empire of lies, but Kesha wasn't done. She revealed everything: the list of families, the hidden pattern of deaths, the corruption at the heart of high society. Within weeks, the scandal broke across national headlines. Senators resigned. Judges were indicted. Wealthy dynasties collapsed, all because one girl had dared to ask questions. 6 months later, Walsh sat in prison, her medical license revoked, her name synonymous with betrayal. Meanwhile, Kesha Carter became the youngest person ever accepted into Harvard Medical School. She launched a foundation for gifted children from poor backgrounds, funded in part by Vincent Marcelli, who never forgot who had saved his son. James Carter, once invisible in the hospital halls, now ran operations with pride, finally able to buy his own home. Tommy Marcelli, strong and healthy, often visited Kesha, calling her the doctor who saw what no one else did. Dr. Peterson, stripped of his license, spent his days bitterly explaining to anyone who would listen how a teenager had ruined him. No one cared. At her graduation, Kesha stood before a crowd that once doubted her. "Justice," she told them, "isn't given. It's taken by those brave enough to speak, even when no one listens." Intelligence has no age, no color, no class. Her revenge was never about destroying her enemies. It was about becoming so brilliant, so undeniable, that the world would forever remember the girl they once tried to silence. And somewhere in a prison cell, Miranda Walsh wept, because the girl she dismissed as a curious teenager had changed medicine forever.